What's up, everyone? My name is Desi.
And my name is Kim.
And this is How We See It. Guys, we are so excited for today's episode. We're going to be talking about some juicy things. Marriage.
Yes, very juicy. It's a highly requested topic that we have been asked to talk about. So we are finally going to speak about it on our second episode.
Yeah, I'm super excited. And before we get into this, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who supported us during our first episode. We have a lot of listens, and we're super excited to start this one.
I'm kind of shocked of the amount of listens that we've have received since our first episode.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of like, oh wow, people are actually wanting to listen.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I think thinking about everything that we kind of brainstorm and actually making our podcast happen and real.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh.
So Kim, do you want to talk about the giveaway real quick?
Yeah. So we did do a giveaway on our Instagram page for our first one. So we were giving away a Target gift card and a Kirsten S curling iron and some khaki accessories. So we will be, well, I'm sure you guys already know the winner by this time, but we're just, again, grateful for everyone that has participated. We did really get really good topics to talk about in the future in our podcast. So we can't wait to really put those into action, talk about them, because we grab that information and we actually we start brainstorming ideas for our podcast. So
yeah, definitely. Should we jump right into this?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. So I just kind of wanted to say this before we started our podcast. I just want to say I want to be as real and open about this topic as much as possible. I want to be very unfiltered during this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's a lot of people out there who struggle during their first year of marriage, and I want them to know that it's okay to have those feelings and go through those times. Everything that I bring up, if it offends anybody, I don't want it to offend anybody. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And like we said in our first episode, it's how we see it.
Yeah.
So just take everything that we're saying into this is our story, and whatever you're going through, maybe you went through the same thing, maybe you didn't. But yeah, let's just be judgmental free and just loving and kind. And like I said, this is our story, and we want you guys to listen and learn or, take advice from us.
Yeah. All right, let's get into this. So I wanted to talk about how we met our husbands, so everyone can kind of get a little insight to our marriage, how it all started. Do you want to go first, Kim?
Yeah, I'll go first. My husband's name is Taylor. So we're both originally from Vegas, and we met in high school. So long story short, I was a new girl in the high school that he was attending. I was a junior, he was a senior, and I had a boyfriend at the time, and Taylor wanted my number, but I said, no, I have a boyfriend. Well, he went through a friend that knew me. He had a mutual friend, and I was like, no, sorry, I have a boyfriend. Fast forward a couple months, I broke up with that boyfriend, and Taylor asked for my number again.
Ooh,
so
he was digging ya.
He was digging me. I was digging him too. He was cute. So he finally got my number, and we started chatting and stuff. And so he took me on a first date, and we kind of just hit it off right off the back. He was super nice. He was probably one of the few guys that has ever opened the door for me, coming in and coming out of the door. So I was super he's such a gentleman. He was handsome. And the old school high school that I used to go to, all the girls were obsessed with him. Everybody knew of Taylor. And I was like, oh yeah, whatever. I thought he was cute, but anyway. So when I finally met him and I went on a date with him, all my friends were freaking out that I went out with Taylor Larson. And so, yeah. Anyway, I ended up marrying him.
Well, I'm glad he kept asking for your number.
I know. I'm glad too.
I didn't know the beginning part of that story, that he asked for your number before. While you had a boyfriend. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't think he knew that I had a boyfriend, but he
just went for it.
I remember seeing him in the hallway once, and I dropped my books. It's kind of I felt like this was a movie scene. I dropped my books, and I was wearing, it was Spirit Day in high school, and I was wearing a pink bow, and I everything fell, and he helped. He was behind me, and I was running away from him because I didn't want to talk to him. And he helped me pick him up, and he gave it to me. I was like, Thanks, bye.
That's funny.
Yeah, so how did you meet Adam?
So, how I met Adam. I don't know whether I should give you like the long version or like the very short version. I'm just going to give a medium version. So, I had a boyfriend. We talked, we went on our missions and we were talking. Get back from our mission, he had like a little homecoming party and I met his best friend's wife and we hit it off really well and she offered me a job where she was working. And so I ended up going to work with her, and then Adam ended up working there as well. So
Where, like, what kind of?
it was like I don't even know how to explain it. It's like a flooring store. So they put in carpets and floors and stuff, and I worked behind the desk. I just made appointments, and he like did all the labor. We were like so shy talking to each other. It took us forever to actually like speak with each other. It was really funny. But that's how we met. We just worked at a job together.
I always wanted to meet, like, someone at a job, you know, like, when you think someone's cute. I remember my first job I had, like, I thought this guy was really cute, and I was like, oh, I hope he thinks I'm cute. Anyway.
I always feel like it's a really boring way to meet somebody. So that's
Really?
funny that you say that. So how long did you guys date for? So you guys met, you guys went on a date. How long did you guys date for?
So this is a really confusing question for us. So we met in high school. We dated for a couple months. Then Taylor left on his mission. And we wrote the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Then 2 weeks before he came back home, I left on my mission. So we missed each other by 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And he wrote me my entire mission. And then when I came back home, we started dating, like, right off the bat. He was there, like, when I got home. So, like, technically, we've talked for, like, 3.5 years, but
Yeah.
before getting married.
Mm-hmm.
But technically, we were only together for a few months,
Yeah.
like, in person.
Uh-huh.
So it's a really confusing question for me.
Yeah.
To him, like, we were like, I don't know, like, we never know what to say for that question. So a couple months, 3.5 years, both.
Yeah. Mix of them.
Yeah. How long did you guys date for?
So we started dating at the end of April, and we like went on dates from April to May. And then in June, we officially became boyfriend and girlfriend. And then, let's see, yeah, we dated from June to August. And then in August, he proposed. And in November, we got married.
Okay.
It was really fast, but it was definitely meant to be.
I know. I like look at our timeline and I'm like, that was such a long time and so much. I thought Taylor was gonna get married when he like went.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, he's definitely getting married. He's a cute guy. I know all the BYU girls are gonna want him,
Mm-hmm.
but he didn't. Like, I did tell him to go on dates.
Yeah.
So when I was on my mission, like 3 months into my mission, I told them, like, hey, like, I think you should date, because I was dating when he left, because I was so young when he left.
Yeah.
So I told him to go, like, on 7 dates. I gave him a number.
So were you like technically together while you were on your mission? Like, would you guys consider yourself boyfriend and girlfriend while you were on your mission?
He would call me his girlfriend.
Okay.
Like,
So you guys are basically a thing.
Yes, I have proof that he called me his girlfriend. I was kind of more hesitant because I was so young,
Mm-hmm.
and I barely knew him. I only knew him for a couple months when he left on his mission.
Yeah.
So we always say we fell in love spiritually first before we actually, like, got married.
Yeah. That's cute that he waited for you all that time.
Yeah, he went on dates.
But like, do you think he would have like married someone else if he found a different girl? Or do you
No.
think he had you like in the back of his mind the whole time?
He always says he had me in his back of his mind, but, like, I know he had, like, a serious girlfriend. Like, well, not a serious he's never had a girlfriend besides me.
Quotations.
Quotations. But I always say, like, it's meant to be because we're together. He definitely could have gotten married. I could have gotten married, like, in between those times, but he didn't. Like, he decided to wait for me and decided to explore what we had before.
Yeah. That's awesome. Good job, Taylor. I'm happy you guys got married.
I'm happy you and Adam got married because now we're best friends.
I know.
We're, like, hanging out.
Yes, me too.
Well, so how old were you when you got married then?
So I was 21. I was 21 when I got married.
Okay, how about Adam?
He was 22. And you and Taylor were?
20. I barely turned 22 and Taylor's 23. So
Okay.
he's 1 year older than me.
Okay.
We're old.
I know, we're getting old. It's kind of sad. So, Kim, when do you think too young? Like, when is it too young, in your opinion, to be married?
Okay, so my mom got married really young with my dad. My parents are divorced, so my mom remarried, like, later on in life, so she got married at, like, 19, 20, and at first, before I got married, I thought that was super young, but now, I don't know. I feel like if you find someone, you find someone. Like, I have a friend right now that I think she turned 21.
Mm-hmm.
And she's taking those steps of wanting to get married with her boyfriend.
Yeah.
So, I know that they're good for each other, and so I'm like, yeah, great, do it. But I can see why other people think, like, oh yeah, that's super young, because you're just barely learning things, and you're like, do you even have, like, a job stable enough to, like, provide? Like, you have to think about those things. I think too young is maybe, like, 18 is, like, too young. 18, 19 is too young. Once you get, like, 21, 22, like, go for it.
Yeah, so in my opinion, I feel like everybody is so different. They have a different level of maturity. So you can be 18 and be super mature, and then there can be other 18-year-olds that are very immature, and they're not ready to be married. So I feel like it's hard to put a number on marriage. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. I think also the stage in life that you're in, because an 18-year-old, like, can be pregnant. I think motherhood matures you. I feel like it just matures you so much, like, quicker.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe that 18-year-old is ready for marriage.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe there's another 18-year-old here
that is totally ready.
Yeah.
But for the majority of the time, I feel like a lot of 18-year-olds are immature, if that makes sense. Like, for the majority of the world.
I don't think 18-year-olds are thinking about, and even, like, there's 25-year-olds and 30-year-olds, like, that are not thinking about the whole picture of marriage.
Yeah.
There's, like, I guess when I went into my marriage, I'm the only child, so I'm not used to sharing, my bathroom.
Yeah.
Or my toothpaste.
Yeah.
I like my toothpaste.
There's a lot of things that you have to learn in marriage that you don't really think about in the moment.
Yeah, for sure. So I just feel like I don't feel like we should define too young.
Yeah, because everybody is so different.
Do you think you would change
being married young?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so. I think I was ready. Do you feel like you were ready to be married?
Yeah, I think so. I think my whole life in general has really, like, prepared me for, like, a marriage. Not necessarily that I was fully ready, because I don't think I'm ready for anything.
Of course.
I think you're learning throughout your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I got married at a young age. I think my marriage is successful right now. I mean, we have our ups and downs like every other marriage, but I feel like we learn together, we're growing together. And I mean, I didn't expect my life to be the way it is right now, but I definitely love it, and I'm definitely, like, growing from it.
Definitely. So you said that you feel like your marriage is You said you feel like your marriage is successful right now. Mm-hmm. What do you feel like has made it successful?
Just communication, I feel like, is the biggest key in marriage for me.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I keep things in a bottle, like my feelings, because I'm the only child. So I just feel like, I don't even know where I was going with that.
No, but I get what you're saying. You had to learn communication through that.
Yes.
But I can agree with you that you were talking about how you grew up. You feel like your whole life was preparing you for marriage. Mm-hmm. I kind of feel the same way. Like, I grew up with divorced parents. So my whole life I was watching, I don't want to say like an unsuccessful marriage, but I watched what I didn't want in my marriage and what I did want in my marriage. Like, my whole life was centered around my parents and having to go back and forth between them. So I feel like all the time I was thinking about how I wanted to have a better marriage. So I was definitely looking forward to being married, if that made sense, and to, like, grow with my spouse and learn how to become better than what my parents were.
No, and I don't think that's a bad thing to say.
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think our parents always want something
mm-hmm.
better for us. Like, I want something better for my kids. I'm not saying that my life is horrible right now, but like I'm saying, like I just want them to be successful. I want their marriage to be, I don't know, I just want better for them.
So I feel like something that has made my marriage successful was talking about like setting expectations before we got married. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we talked about things that we had expectations for before we were married. Like even things down to sex and what we expected for that. So I feel like talking about that before really prepared us for our marriage, and we were on the same page for everything.
So when did you start talking about those things? Like when you got engaged, or like a week before you got married?
I think like as time went on, like you're always asking questions while you're dating. But then as we kind of talked about how we could potentially see each other getting married, we talked about more in-depth questions.
So Taylor and I, we read a book before we, like as we were dating and thinking about getting, like we read it as we were engaged too, but it's called Newlyweds. And so the first like couple words of the book says like, we take so much time planning our weddings, but we don't plan our marriage. And so I think that has always stuck with me, and it's something that I will like carry on with my kids and tell them like, yeah, planning a wedding is great down to like the colors, what your bridesmaids are going to wear. But I feel like planning your marriage is also makes a successful marriage. I'm not necessarily saying like detail oriented, because I like you said, you're going to always be asking questions. You're always going to be learning. But I feel like we should be planning our marriage and asking those questions. So the book talked about only because you grew up a certain way doing something, like example, like the dishwasher. Maybe your parents put the forks down, but Adam's parents put the forks up, loading the dishwasher. And not saying that both parents are like wrong or one's right and the other one's wrong. You just have to find the right way to do it in your marriage, a new way. Or maybe take the dishwasher example. You're going to take that from your mom. But then you're going to take holidays, how Adam's parents celebrated holidays.
Yeah, I definitely know what you're saying.
So
yeah, you have to find like a good balance between each other. And I also feel like even putting yourself in situations like that before you're married, like going on trips with your what's it called, your boyfriend or fiance, whatever, going on trips with them, and even just having those experiences like loading the dishwasher with each other. Adam and I had a moment where I was doing the dishes at my grandma's house, and he was like, "You're doing the dishes wrong." And this was while we were dating, and I was like, no, we had like this whole experience before we were married. And I feel like that was kind of good to go through before we were actually married, just to experience that and be like, well, let's find a balance. Let's do this together and not like argue about who's right, because we're both right.
Yeah, definitely. So that dishwasher example made me think of, I don't like the toilet seat. You know, like guys put the toilet seat up. I hate that, like leaving it like that. So Taylor and I would always get, not like a huge argument.
Yeah.
We would just like, why do you do that? Why do you leave it up? And he's like, well, he simply just said, I grew up just leaving it up. My mom never bothered me telling me to put it down. I had my own bathroom and I just kept it clean, but I left the toilet seat up. It was me and my brother. And I'm like, well, I don't like it, because what if I fall through the toilet? But anyway, he started putting it down, and now like he'll do it. Like I don't even have to ask him anymore. But it's those like examples and experiences that we have to go through to like learn from one another. And he could have easily just been like, no, I'm gonna leave it up. But he was being coachable. We have to be coachable too with our spouses. Like if Taylor didn't like something, like, why doesn't he like it? How can I fix it? Or how can we make it better that we both are kind of like on the same page?
Yeah. And I feel like it's good to also express yourself when you do run into those situations. Like you were saying, Taylor told you why he felt that way. It's because he grew up that way. And sometimes we don't explain ourselves. We'll just be like, I just don't like that. So it's good to explain yourselves so the other person can see why you're being that way.
So let's take a quick break to talk about our podcast and what we used. So if you haven't heard of Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. And let us explain. It's free.
And there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, which has made it so easy for us.
Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple, and so many more platforms.
Yeah, when you look into it, there are a ton of platforms that it puts the podcast on, which has been so awesome. Plus, you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership.
It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So it's made it, again, super easy for us to make how we see it.
Yeah, so download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm. Again, anchor.fm to get started. All right, let's get back into this. So, Kim, I want to know, what is one thing that you struggled with or learned during your first year of marriage?
Okay, so let me think about that question. So you go first, and then I'll answer after you.
Okay. So I asked Adam about this before we started our podcast. I kind of asked what he learned during our first year of marriage, and we actually had the exact same answer, which was kind of cool. So Adam and I, just to give you a little insight on our marriage, we have divorced parents, both of us. So we have 4 families to see instead of just 2. Does that make sense? We have 4.
Yeah.
So it is a lot. If you're married, you know how hard it is already to split the time between 2 families.
Oh, yeah,
Isn't
for
it
sure.
hard?
My parents are divorced, so I know how it is. It's so hard.
It's very hard. So having to see 4 families was really difficult for us. We had to really figure out who we were going to see and how long we were going to be there. And especially for me, it was really hard because I'm an introvert, hardcore. And it's already exhausting for me to be around one of my families. So at the end of the day, I just want to go home. I just want to be home and just done with seeing people. But when you add 3 other families into that, it's very exhausting. And so that was something I had to learn, just to be more open and just kind of deal with it and find that balance. So that was something that we both had to really navigate in our marriage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. So what do you guys do during like holidays? Like how do you split holidays? So this is kind of going off subject, but I do want to know.
Yeah. So like we talked about earlier, you have to have balance and kind of ask what is important and why. So like you were saying, you had to figure out which holidays were a priority to which family, if that makes sense. So we've kind of just done that. We've taken turns every year. We've like, this year we're going to go to Christmas morning with my dad and then Christmas afternoon with your family. Okay.
Yeah. Have you guys talked about like future things? Like, well, I guess because I feel like your daughter right now is like a hot
yes.
Everybody wants to see her. She's so cute, and I'm sure like all the grandmas want to see her. So have you guys talked about like balancing, like how are you gonna do that? Like,
we actually haven't, but I feel like that's gonna be another challenge that we're gonna have to go through soon.
Okay.
And our parents just have to be really understanding with that. It's really hard for them, I feel like, but they just have to understand that we both have divorced parents, and we both have to make time for all of them.
Yeah, because I feel like you want her to grow up knowing every single member of the family. So
totally.
I feel like it is important to have that balance in her life so she can know, like, this is grandma, but this is also grandma,
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah,
I know what
that's
you're
awesome. You guys are awesome.
Oh, thanks.
Adam and Desi are the best parents. You guys, like, Taylor and I always talk about, like, how good of parents they are. Like, they've always, like, we started hanging out with them like a year or 2 ago, and nothing has really changed since they've had a baby. Like, I feel like we're always hanging out. We still go on double dates before the coronavirus. We're still going on dates, and I feel like that's awesome that they don't kind of hide in their shell. Like, they don't go like, we have a baby, like bring that up as an excuse. Like, they're still like going out and still wanting to have fun and live their life. So I think that's super awesome of you guys to like do that.
Thank you. I feel like we really do try to still live our lives, even with a child, so that I feel like I want her to be a part of those experiences, and so that she can learn as a mom that she doesn't have to stop her life just because she had children.
Yeah. She's a part of our crew, you guys.
Yeah. Gang, gang.
Gang, gang. Okay. I thought about my answer.
Okay, go for it.
Patience. I feel like I'm very much a go person, and Desi's pointing at herself right now.
Me too.
And I feel like Taylor he's kind of a go person too, but at the same time actually I take that back. He's not. He's a perfectionist. Taylor's really detailed oriented, and I am too, but not as much as him.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to get things done and get them done in the right way, of course, but I feel like if he doesn't read the instructions on something, like he cannot, like he has to read them.
That is Adam.
Yeah.
That is Adam too.
And I'm just like, let's just assemble this thing.
Let's
and
just go for it.
Yeah. So definitely patience is one of the things it has been the hardest thing in my first year of marriage. And even now to this day, like I feel like Taylor's always telling me to step back and take like a breather for myself and be patient even with myself and not just with my marriage. But I think it's something that we're always going to have to constantly work on, and it's something that we're both trying to learn from each other and be okay with like one person being this certain speed and the other person being like over here. So.
Yeah, definitely. I like that one. That's definitely, I feel like everybody has to learn patience in marriage, especially learning other people's side and how they live as well.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say a couple more things that I've learned during this marriage. Something that I've learned during the first year of marriage that was super important was learning each other's love language and also our fighting language, how we go through those situations. I feel like you're super in love, and you're still super in love after you get married, but it's a different kind of love. It's a more mature love. It's not that puppy love that everyone talks about. So I don't want to say like you stopped doing the little things, but in a way, do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Like it's not like butterflies all the time like it was when you were dating.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're not going the extra mile to impress that person.
Mm-hmm.
You still are, but not
it's
as
just different.
Yeah.
Yes. So obviously when we were dating, we were always at the hip. He was always holding me. We were always touching. And my love language is physical touch. But after we got married, you kind of stop doing those things like I was saying. So he stopped holding me as much as he did. And I really need that. I really live off of that. So that was something that, like, I would cry about it because I felt like he didn't love me. But he did love me. He was just showing me his love through a different way. And so I had to learn to watch for that and be grateful for the way that he was showing me his love. And I also had to express to him that I didn't feel like I was receiving love because he wasn't giving it to me in my love language, if that makes any sense.
Oh, Taylor and I have had the same exact conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been like a physical touch. Ask any of my friends, ask any of my companions. Like, I do not like people touching me. But when it came to Taylor, when we started dating, like, oh, honey, touch me.
Yeah.
Like,
give it all to me.
Give it all to me. Like, I just loved him touching me and hugging me. So I've had the same conversation. I've at times felt like he hasn't loved me, like, I felt like he was different. Like, I wanted the old him back.
Yeah. And you
like,
would say things like, you weren't like this when we were dating.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I look back and I'm like, oh, like, I shouldn't say that to him. Definitely. But it's how I feel. Like, I like you touching me. I want you to hold me. I want you to, when we're sitting on the couch, just hold my hand like we're 15, you know? Like, just, so I totally get what you're saying. Like, it's something that I feel like a lot of people might be thinking.
They can agree with, And it's definitely something that you have to both work on, because I have to go the extra mile to see how he's showing me his love, and he has to go the extra mile to give me the love the way that I like to receive it. If that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think we should do a future episode on like love languages. Because I feel like it'd be interesting to see what your love language is. We would love to hear some stories about that. And then also Des and I can go more into detail of like what our love language is as well.
Yeah.
So if you guys would like to hear that, let us know.
Is there anything else that you want to say that you learned or that you struggled with?
I think another thing is my independence. I don't know how exactly to word that, but my independence. Like I said, again, I was the only child, so I only had to think about myself, and I can do what I wanted. And so I feel like now, not that I have to keep tabs with my husband, but at first it was kind of hard to be like, okay, I have to tell him I'm doing this, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's one.
No, that's definitely, yeah, I totally get you on that. Like the other day, do you remember when Adam called you?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me tell this story really quick.
You tell this story.
So Taylor and I were home, and I was outside in our backyard, and my phone was right next to me, and so Adam called me. I missed the call, and Taylor answered the phone, and I heard him on the phone with someone. Taylor comes out, and he's like, hey, were you supposed to be hanging out with Desi? It was Adam on the phone. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, oh crap, I must have like planned something with her, and I completely forgot to like go hang out with her. So I looked at my phone, I'm like, wait, no. And then Adam, I guess, asked Taylor, is she with Kim? And obviously Taylor was like, no, she's not here. So Desi was kind of missing for a second. She'll tell you her part.
So really, I had told Adam the night before. He must have just missed it. I told him that I was doing a photo shoot that night in the canyon. And in the canyon, I don't have service. So he was calling me, and I wasn't receiving any of his calls. So when I got out of the canyon, Kim had texted me, and she said, where are you? Adam's looking for you. So I was actually in the canyon, and he thought that, yeah, he just didn't know where I was. He thought that I didn't tell him where he was.
Yeah, I have Desi on my Find Our Friends. Like, we have our locations. I don't know if that's kind of weird for you guys, but we have our location. So I like checked her location, and I knew her aunt lived that direction. So I'm like, her aunt lives over there. And I was like freaking out because I'm like thinking, Lila's with her. Desi's, I don't know where. And I was like freaking out that my friend's missing. And so I was like just worried. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, so I ended up getting a hold of him. He was on the verge of tears. He was so scared that I had gone missing or that someone had killed me.
She was fine.
I was perfectly fine, but moral of the story is you have to communicate with your spouse.
Clearly.
Very clearly. Make sure that they know it's in their calendar. Yeah.
But independence is not independent. Well, you are still independent, I feel like, at the same time. Like, your marriage should not make you not feel independent because you should be. But it's just hard. It's different independence.
There's somebody else in the relationship with you, so you obviously have to.
Just with, like, finance, too. Like, I feel like we were talking about in our last episode, like, I can't go drop $500 because Taylor also works for those $500 too. So I have to go tell him if I want to go buy a brand new rug or a dresser that is a certain amount of money because he works for that money too, and he can say like, hey, I don't think that's a smart financial move for us, or oh great, do it. Like,
yeah, there's two people on the team. All right, I just wanted to say one more, and then I think we'll be good on what we learned during our first year of marriage. I think, I don't know if this goes for a lot of people, for the majority or whoever, but in-laws.
Oh, that's a good one. I put my phone down. I'm like,
ooh, this is a good one. Yeah. I feel like you have a great relationship with your in-laws.
I do.
Everything you've said has been great, and I feel like everything that they say about you is also 10/10.
I hope so. Yeah. I do love my in-laws.
Yeah. For me, on the other hand, I mean, I think they love me. I love them. But I have struggled.
How so?
This is hard for me because I don't know how, like, in depth to go about this, because I don't want to offend anybody, but I also just like I said at the beginning, I just want to make sure that this is as real as possible.
Yeah.
You know? So, man, we might just have to have a whole nother episode on this because, again, there's so much that goes into this topic, but just learning to love your in-laws and kind of, I don't know. I don't even know where I want to go with this, but I just want to say that I struggled with my in-laws.
Okay, so struggled, like you didn't feel accepted, or how? This is like a really like sensitive topic, but
we want to be real so that anyone out there who's feeling this knows that they're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
I've struggled with one of Adam's parents, and I just having to learn patience with them as well, and learning to love them through this whole process as well, because they're a package deal with Adam. So I feel like I'm still learning to be patient and loving. So I don't really know where to go with that, but I just wanted to say that that's something that I'm still struggling with to this day.
And I think, I mean, we love our spouses, and like you said, they're
Mm-hmm.
a package deal. And just like we're a package deal with our families, like with our people, like my
Mm-hmm.
mom, my dad, they're my package deal.
Yeah.
So I feel like Taylor grew up such a different way than I did. Like you grew up so differently than I grew up. And so I feel like some things, habits or whatever that the other family does, you're like taken back and you're like, oh, you do that.
Yeah,
or
even that. Mm-hmm.
or even like certain words or just whatever. Like you're like, oh, we didn't do that in my family.
Yeah.
Or I don't know.
Yeah.
Does that
I
make-
definitely know what you're saying, and that as well is super applicable. I'll just kind of give an example of what I struggled with during the first year of marriage.
Okay.
Especially the first year, was Adam grew up as a single child with his mom. So they have a very different relationship than most families with multiple children. So one of the things that we had to learn was you kind of have to detach from that. Just having the parents know that
They're independent now.
they're independent now. They have a family of their own now, and you can't constantly, I don't even know how to put this into words. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yes, I'm trying to put myself in like those shoes.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom is the only one I
Yeah.
can turn to on my family, because I mean, I talk to my dad, but it's not like my mom. My mom's my best friend, and we talk. So Mom, if you hear this,
Yeah, if you guys hear this, we just want you to know that we love you, but we're just learning from this whole experience.
Yes.
And showing it how we see it.
yes, for sure. So I call my mom every single day. That is a lot for sometimes Taylor, and I've tried to find a balance with it, because I am in a marriage. I have to think about when I'm home with my husband, because I only get a certain amount of time with my husband. So I've had to talk to my mom and tell her, hey, I love talking to you. You're my best friend, but I also have a husband that I need to have conversations with at dinner instead of being on like FaceTime or talking on the phone. So Taylor has kind of said like, hey, he's not necessarily has told me not to talk to my mom every single day,
Yeah.
but has told me, hey, put your phone down. Hey, it's like time to like cut your phone off. Like it's just me and you time.
Again, with the balance. You have to find a balance.
Yeah. So I definitely think that's something that have struggled with in our first year of marriage, because I am so used to turning to my mom. I'm still like, if I need a recipe, I turn to my mom.
Mm-hmm.
If I need a crying shoulder, I turn to my mom,
Yeah.
So it's definitely has been like, I need to turn to my husband more versus I need to turn to my mom, which isn't wrong to turn to my mom.
Yeah.
But I definitely have had to learn for myself that I'm in an eternal like companionship with my husband and not with my mom.
Yes.
So
yes, exactly that with Adam. So I feel like he would go over every single day to her house and spend multiple hours with her after work. And that was cutting away from our time. And it's like, great, I want you to see your mom, but you're married to me now, and I want to spend time with you as well. You know what I'm saying? So, like, again, balance. You can go see her, but not every day.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
No.
And I also feel like parents, they love their children and they want to be involved in what they do. But especially in that situation where Adam's the only child, it was a little too involved. And it's like, okay, we have to kind of cut that back just a little bit.
Well, even sometimes, like, my family is known to be like, we're all up in our business.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we tell each other everything. So if I know, like, if my mom tells me something, or like if I tell my mom something, she's telling my grandma. My grandma tells my aunt, and my aunt tells my other aunt. So, like, we're all up in each other's business, which is, there's pros and cons to that. But I definitely feel like we just need to, like, know that you're in a relationship with your, well, what I was getting towards that is that I've had at times Taylor tell me that wasn't something that you should have shared with your mom.
Yes.
He trusts my mom. He loves my mom. Like, there's nothing wrong with my family. And so, well, like, with sharing information or whatever, but I just feel like
some things should just be kept between you two and your little family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So, like, I've had multiple times my mom asked me, like, certain questions, and I'm like, I shouldn't be telling you this.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you. Like, and so I totally get where Taylor's coming from and telling me, like, that should have been kept between us. Like, that is our, like, situation. That's our problem. That's something that you shared with me. So that shouldn't be, like, that's just a weird question that your mom's asking.
Definitely.
And so, and I totally understand. Like, maybe my mom shouldn't be knowing
every single detail.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the amount that you share.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yep. Amen.
Amen. There's nothing wrong. Again, there's nothing wrong with sharing, like, spending time with that family member.
Yes.
Or sharing that information with a certain family member. But I think what Des and I are really trying to focus on is, like, the balance between everything. Family versus you being in the marriage. Because when you get married young, 18, 19, 20, 21, whatever, we still have the habit of depending on our parents. And I'm turning 25 this year, and I still depend on my mom.
Definitely.
A lot. So I think just trying to figure that out and finding the balance of, like, okay, I'm a big girl now.
Mm-hmm.
I need to put my big girl pants and try to figure it out by myself. I'm very indecisive, so I feel like I need other people's opinions and insights to, like, how to live my life, which I'm still trying to learn. And we just talked about this, like, a couple days ago. So I feel like that's something that I'm still struggling with in my marriage, is I have to make my own choices. Yeah. And my mom can't make those choices for me.
Definitely.
Or Taylor can't even make those choices for me.
Mm-hmm. Do you kind of want to read just some things that we got from our Instagram?
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea. We got
I kind of put a mini little poll on my Instagram.
I forgot my password. I might be locked out of my phone. Okay, I got it.
And I kind of asked what your guys' opinion was on how young is too young to be married.
So what did we get?
So our average answer is 19 and 20.
Too young.
Is too young. So the options I put were 18 to 25. Anywhere in between there, what do you guys think? And the average answer was 19 and 20. Okay, so the next question that I asked was, what is one thing that you struggled with in your first year of marriage, or something that you learned? I got a lot of communication. I feel like we really touched on that one a lot. Somebody said communication and balancing our two lives. We're a military couple, so it was rough.
Yeah, I could imagine that. I feel like he would be away a lot, you know? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I've never been in that situation, but I've known friends that have been in that situation.
Yeah.
Or are going through that, and it was really hard to, like, especially if they got pregnant, if they have a baby, like, kids at home.
Mm-hmm.
Their husband's home, away majority of the time. So yeah, I could definitely see why that would be hard. Someone sent us a response saying it was a lot harder than we thought it'd be.
Yeah, kind of like we talked about earlier. Before you get married, you're in the moment of just being so deeply in love that sometimes you don't think about certain things that could happen in your marriage, certain things that can come up. So it can be a lot harder than you think.
Yeah. Just those details that we have to really talk about beforehand to prevent certain situations. But again, questions, you should always be asking questions. You should always be learning. So it's always going to be hard. You're always going to have your ups and downs. But I just think both being coachable and both being willing to accept what your partner's going to teach you. It's kind of like what I was kind of going off of what I just said. Someone said you will always learn something new about your partner. So
definitely.
I definitely agree on that.
Ooh, this one's I like this one. Struggling spouses' past relationships and comparing myself with them and stressing. That's a good one.
That's me.
Yeah.
I compare.
Oh yeah, hardcore. I think it's just natural for us girls to do that.
Okay. I look completely different than what Taylor has dated in the past. So that was really hard for me, but he's like, well, because you're different. Way? Just like looks.
Okay. Just in general, your looks or like
only Hispanic girl he's dated.
Okay, yes.
Only the dark hair.
The type of girl that he dated. Okay.
I feel like I'm completely different from his
typical type. Yeah.
Type that I guess I put the type because he's like, I've never really had a type. And I'm like, well, you dated A, B, C, and D, and I'm not like A, B, C, and D.
Yes.
So I definitely, like Taylor and I, he's like, well, you need to not bring up my past because I married you and I chose you because of you. Mm-hmm. So
that's definitely so true. I don't know why, but I love to dig into his past relationships with other girls. He never ever talks about them, and I really want to know about it. So I feel like I kind of dig, and sometimes I get myself in trouble with comparing myself and getting jealous for no reason. He chose me. But I'm definitely the same way with Adam because he dated blondes his whole life, and he never thought that he would have dated a Hispanic.
With dark hair.
With dark hair and dark eyes. He was going for the blondes and colored eyes, so that was hard for me because I'm like, are you sure you like this? You know?
Yeah, I think one thing I struggled with was being maybe judged by his family, which his family would never do that, but definitely one thing that I was always super worried. Before we got engaged, I told him, are you sure you want to marry me? And he's like, why are you saying that? Like, why are you even questioning it at this point? Like, I think he bought a ring at that point. And I said, well, because I'm Hispanic and I have dark hair, I have brown eyes, and your family doesn't, like, you know? And he's like, my sister has dark hair. I'm like, I know, but she's still.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's something I struggled with, like, in the beginning of our marriage, is like being accepted by his family. And his family has always been so accepting and like open arms and loving. They love me so much and I love them. Yeah. But yeah, I got myself in real big trouble with like digging too much. A little too much than I needed to.
Literally the other night I asked him who was his best kisser before me. I just want to know those things.
You wanted to get in trouble.
I said like before me so I didn't include myself because obviously I'm the best, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, but just those little things. I like that one.
Yeah, that one's a really good one.
Somebody else said in-laws. I'm glad we touched on that. I like this one. How we spend Saturdays, how much time we spend doing fun things versus being productive. Do you struggle with that?
Yes.
Me too.
Okay.
Amen.
Amen to the T. Like, yes. Taylor, I don't know if you guys listened to our first episode. I hope you did, but he's applying to dental school next year. So he's studying like consistently throughout the week. Like, I barely see him. Like, he's stuck in we have 2 bedrooms and he has like his setup right there. He's always in there. So this past Saturday, it's 3:00 and he's still studying for a test, which is super important. Like, I support him in everything. I don't want to make myself sound like a bad wife, but I tell him all the time, like, Taylor, you need to find balance in spending time with me, because you also have a wife that, like, I work Monday through Friday. So I want to see you. I want to hang out with you. I want to go on a walk. I want to go on a hike, whatever we can do. Obviously, we can't do much right now because of everything going on. But I feel like it's important to, like, spend time with your spouse. So, yes, amen to the T. Yes. Taylor and I still constantly try not to argue about it, because it's a hot topic in our house, because I want him to do really well in school, which he is, but I also want him to hang out with me and spend time with me.
Definitely. So, yeah. And so it's kind of the same with Adam, but he is obviously not studying, but he's been working all week. So when it comes to Saturday, he just wants to relax. And he likes to relax by being on his phone. So he'll be scrolling all day long. And I'm like, I'm right here. Like, I want you to relax with me. I want you to give me all your attention. That's kind of hard for us, because I want him to be able to relax and just, like, let it out the way that he likes to let it out. But I also want him to spend time with me. And at the same time, I also want to be productive and get things done that we need to, like chores and other little things like that. So
I feel like I'm like Adam. When it does get to that time that we get to hang out, I start scrolling like just going through Instagram and going through Facebook, and then Taylor's like, well, you want to hang out, but you're on your phone. I'm like, I know. I'm sorry. I'm not perfect.
I'm sorry.
I'm not perfect, but yeah, it's definitely like a learning curve for both of us. Okay, someone did put, I think this is a good one. Your expectations will never be met because they cannot read your mind.
Yes.
And I think that one is really important too.
So important.
Because it's true. Your spouse cannot read your mind. Like, they do not know what you're thinking. So when you get upset about something, or like you get impatient with them, they don't know why. So I think this is where communication needs to come in play.
Yes. I also had expectations one here. They say expectations, not knowing what the other person expected from the future spouse. Kind of interesting. But yeah, I think that's definitely important. Sometimes I feel like Adam has the same thinking that I do. So I feel like he's just going to naturally do what I want him to do. But he doesn't. He thinks way different than I do. So it's definitely important to talk about those expectations.
Yeah, just kind of referring off of the book that I talked about in the, like, just a couple minutes ago. That book also mentioned that, like, if you want to go to the movie theaters, they did like a scale. I'm not saying do the scale, but they said he would ask his wife, like, a scale of 1 through 10, how bad do you want to go to the movies? And she would say, I want to go to 6. And he would say, oh, I want to go 8.
That's kind of cool. I like that.
So they would kind of figure out
on the scale where they want to be.
Yeah, because sometimes you're like, I just want to do what my wife is doing, but at the same time you're kind of miserable, but you guys want to both be happy and enjoying your time together. So I feel like sometimes that scale does come into play. So sometimes Taylor will ask me, how bad do you want to go to Texas Roadhouse?
I like that. I'm going to apply that into my marriage. That's really cool, because all the time we're debating on where to go to dinner. And Adam will be like, you choose. And I'm like, no, you choose.
Like, you say, I don't care, or whatever.
And then he'll be like, well, how about Culver's? And I'll be like, sure. But maybe I don't necessarily really want that. So I kind of like, on a scale of 1 to 10, what about this? I like that.
And sometimes you'll see that, like, maybe he's even thinking like a 2 and you're thinking a 2, like low numbers. And so you're like, oh, I'm kind of glad that we talked about it, because we're both like kind of being unhappy eating that dinner or doing that thing that we didn't want to do.
That's a good one. I like that.
So we have applied that to our marriage, and a fun little exercise if you guys want to try that out with your spouses.
Yeah. I think the last one we can end on is finances and managing money. So if you haven't listened to our first episode, we kind of touched on that, on how we manage our money. Somebody said the weirdest thing was definitely joining their finances, putting them together. I definitely, do you guys, like, how do you guys manage your money? Do you guys sit down every month and talk about it, or do you just kind of have like a general rule?
So we used to put it on like an Excel sheet and kind of talk about, okay, this
Like
is
a
what
budget?
Yeah, this is what we're spending in groceries, this is what we're spending in gas, and this is how much we have to spend on dates and stuff. But that was kind of when we were first getting introduced with our money, like we're seeing
When
what
you
was
first married, which is really important.
what was coming in and what was going out.
Yeah.
Like that was the first time we've actually paid rent, a big amount of rent together.
Yeah.
So we had to like sit down and talk, but now we kind of already know. Like I said, Taylor does look at our account very frequently, and because he's like just checking that we have enough money in our savings and we have enough money like to go on a trip or something, you know what I mean? Or go buy I don't know if you want to go buy a computer, like we have enough money for a computer.
Yeah.
So
I like that. Yeah, Adam and I did the same thing when we were first married. We had an Excel sheet as well, and like we went through all the numbers, how much we each made and how much we were going to put into each account. It's like checking, saving, other different types of savings and things like that. And then now we're just kind of used to it. We kind of just go with the flow, know how to do it.
Yeah.
So I think it's important when you're first married to kind of sit down and definitely go through the numbers. I think that was it for this episode.
That was fun. I think that all these like little topics that we talk, like bullet points that we talked about, are super important. I think we need to talk about finances. I think we need to talk about like how to we need to apply communication into our marriage, patience into our marriage, charity into our marriage, like to make a successful marriage.
Yeah.
And your I can't even talk.
Successful.
Your successful marriage will be like, you have your own definition for that.
I'd love to have another episode on how we get through problems in our marriage. Just kind of go more in depth on that. I kind of want to talk about like comp inventory. I feel like that'd be good for future episode. Just kind of go into depth about that because we don't have too much time for this one. Hopefully this helps anybody who is in their first year of marriage or is in their third year of marriage, whatever year you're in, or whoever is planning to get married. So next week, we are going to be having very special guests on our next episode. Kim, do you want to share?
Dun, 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 our husbands. We are super excited just because they're a really big part of like this podcast and we want to involve them. And we're going to kind of be talking about the topics that we were talking about in this episode, but a little bit more in depth and seeing it through their eyes of what marriage looks like.
How they perceive our marriage, definitely.
So we would love to hear some stories. We would love to read some stories in our next podcast. So if you have any, reach out to us in our email and send us a story.
It can be stories or struggles that you're going through so that we can give you some advice, some relationship advice. We would love the participation.
Yes, and even if like you're a woman, because sometimes I have questions for my husband that I don't want to specifically ask him. Like I want to see what like a man use it. So like if you have a specific question that you're like, I wonder how my husband thinks of this.
Yes.
You can ask your husbands of like how a wife should do it. Or like if that makes sense.
Or even if you're not married and you have a boyfriend and you have a question on any certain level that you want a guy to answer, then ask us away.
Yeah. So thanks so much you guys for listening to this episode. We can't wait to make future episodes.
And if you guys aren't already following us on Instagram, it's howweseeit.podcast. And for those who would like to watch these episodes, you guys can follow us on YouTube as well. You guys can find this episode on Spotify, and there are lots of other platforms that this is on, like Google Podcasts, Breaker. You guys can find those links to those podcasts, to these podcast episodes in our link, in our bio. I totally butchered that whole sentence, but it's in the link in our bio. So go check that out. And we are still waiting on Apple to approve us. Hopefully by the time this episode comes out, it will be on Apple Podcasts. But you guys can find us there.
So yeah, thank you so much, you guys. And we can't wait to talk a little bit more next week.
Bye. Guys.